Now to a story that could reshape the race to get Donald Trump out of the White House. Joe Biden says he'll announce his choice for vice president next week, with reports of finalists like Kamala Harris, Karen Bass, and Susan Rice. And that brings us to our backstory right now, our series aiming to provide you with substantive reporting about a single key figure in the presidential cycle. We did a report on Senator Harris. Tonight, we look at another contender from Biden's short list, Val Demings, a former police chief and congresswoman from Florida who rose to a big role as manager of Trump's impeachment. Long before that, though, Demings first emerged on the national stage back in 2014, speaking out on the police killing of Michael Brown and tensions between the community in Ferguson, Missouri, and police.
And I think Ferguson could benefit from really getting with some of their community leaders and really going out in those communities and really actively recruiting African-American law enforcement officers.
Demings pushing then for more black leaders in law enforcement while also referring to these rifts, something the president at the time also hit on.
We need to recognize that the situation in Ferguson speaks to broader challenges that we still face as a nation. The fact is, in too many parts of this country, a deep distrust exists between law enforcement and communities of color.
Both Obama and Demings tackling that racial rift and encouraging more diversity in law enforcement, while also noting, of course, that's one among many of the challenges to tackle. Brown's killing was an early case sparking Black Lives Matter protests. Now, the recent push after the killing of George Floyd even led prosecutors there in Missouri to review this Brown case again, and they closed it again without charges just this week. Now, Demings didn't suddenly jump into her role as a unifier in law enforcement. She says it built on a long road. The daughter of a maid and a janitor, the youngest of 7 children, she was enforcing the rules when she was still in middle school.
In the 6th grade, in this predominantly white school, I was chosen to be a school patrol officer. If someone was fighting or misbehaving on the school bus, I would intervene and tell them to sit down and shut up, and I'd whip my patrol badge out. I'm surprised I didn't get, thrown off the bus.
Demings went on to do work as a social worker, but put most of her career into the Orlando PD. 27 years in all, rising to be its first female police chief, which was a big deal. Demings came into that post with a real challenge. She took over at a time when Orlando's murder rate was peaking, breaking all-time records. And then over Demings' 4 years in charge, she oversaw a 43% drop in the crime rate, including a drop in violent crime. For a police chief, that's a key metric of success. And Demings emphasized it was not just about being tough, but also confronting social problems, changing the whole environment.
I took my social worker's heart to that job. I quickly realized that we could not arrest our way out of some of the challenges in our communities, that we had a direct obligation as law enforcement to address some of the social ills that cause decay in communities in the first place.
Now, that substantive history is actually key to the unfolding politics right now, as Biden looks for a running mate that can add policy, credibility, and potentially diversity to the ticket, but who's also in line with where this party is headed amidst this seismic shift in confronting problems in American policing. Is Demings enough of a reformer, a point that she was looking at long before, let's be clear, there were these particular protests or any VP talk? Or will critics potentially see her as embodying enduring problems inside American policing? Well, Demings makes the argument that echoes what a lot of government officials have said, including another person on Biden's shortlist, Kamala Harris, which is if you want to do reform, that requires action, and many of the people acting are necessarily on the inside.
If we want to change policing for the better, then we've got to change it with people who understand the system. And what day do you think I went to work at the Orlando Police Department that I was not reminded, either by people outside of the people or people inside or outside of the department or people inside the department, that I was black or that I was female? But I pressed my way through that and made a difference every day in my community.
And these issues are complicated. They take time and thought, not simplifications like the one she just pointed out, or whether you make a whole opinion about someone just because they worked in law enforcement. But there are critics who argue Demings was basically a status quo chief who didn't change enough of the department's core operations. And they say that while she was a unifier and was well liked, she didn't fully take on the entrenched powers like the police union. And that matters because an independent report found some rogue cops were operating with impunity in the Orlando PD. And like many other departments, not just the one run by Demings, there are some numbers to back up that concern with policing. When the Orlando department, for example, got 98 claims of excessive force over 5 years, none of them, zero, led to any punishment for those officers. Now, for most of that period, Demings was in the police leadership, but she was not chief yet. But it still provides some snapshot of a department that basically almost never reprimanded officers for even highly questionable documented uses of force. Now, I'd like to run through all the data with you, but like many police departments in the country, they don't make it easy to get all the data. What we do know is that under Chief Demings, there were over 1,000 uses of force over about 2 years, reports that some involved excessive and thus allegedly illegal force. That's local reporting. The New York Times also looked at this and found an officer who shoved a 27-year-old woman down a flight of stairs, breaking a bone. That officer fined and was docked just a single vacation day. Or several officers who fired into a vehicle nearly a dozen times ended up critically injuring an unarmed man. A court sided with that victim, but under Demings, the department completely cleared the officers. Or there was another case where an officer slammed an 84-year-old World War II veteran to the ground, inducing a coma. And in that case, which is reminiscent of some recent examples of excessive force around the country, where you see on video an unarmed elderly person who poses no grave danger to an officer get injured, well, it's pretty controversial. But Chief Demings at the time defended that officer's actions, arguing that they technically followed the department guidelines. The police defense, though, was rejected in court there. A jury ruled against the officers to the tune of over $800,000. Now, Demings did go on to reform that department's specific rules about the treatment of elderly suspects. Now, the history and the culture of that department also can cut both ways. Again, this is complicated stuff, so we're trying to show you all of the evidence and context. There are critics who might see her as a chief who is basically too tolerant of business as usual at that department. There are also allies of Demings who point out that maybe it was someone actually doing the work within the reality of that police force at the time, while cutting crime more than her predecessor and working on reform in several areas. Now, some may view Demings' record as a reminder of the limits of reforming from the inside. But when you look at the politics of this, and it does all go back to an election that's coming up pretty soon, Florida voters and many Democratic leaders have prized Demings' police credentials. That's why she was tapped for a role that virtually every ambitious Democrat wanted, serving as one of just 7 House managers prosecuting the Trump impeachment trial.
If we allow President Trump to escape accountability, we will inflict lasting damage on the separation of powers among our branches of government. I did not come to Congress to impeach a president, but I did come to Congress to do my job. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
It was a forceful presentation from someone who's walked the walk of justice, law enforcement, and combating crime. In that case, what she and the Democrats were arguing was high crimes by a sitting president. You know, that Trump trial ended just 5 months ago. I think it's pretty hard to believe with everything that's happened since. But it was that assignment, waging the legal case against this sitting president for only the 3rd time in history, that vaunted Demings into much more serious consideration for a presidential ticket. And in contrast to many other contenders from blue states, Demings, of course, hails from Florida, which went in the winning column for Trump last time and which propelled Obama's 2 White House victories. He mobilized minorities and independents there. It's a clear political path if Democrats want to take back that state. And we should note, look at this right now. While Biden does lead in some swing states in the polling, he remains statistically tied with Donald Trump in Florida right now. So would Demings help Joe Biden and thus the Democrats there on the biggest test right now, which is, do you have the credibility to be president? That's what any running mate needs. And do you help win? Well, the short answer is, sorry, it's too early to tell. In fact, we checked, and most voters in Florida say they don't know her name right now. They don't recognize it. But that doesn't mean it's not a good thing. It just means it's not a known thing yet. Historically, when a home state figure is added to the national ticket, it is big local news. It would certainly give the Biden campaign a new way to mobilize Florida voters. And Demings would obviously break another barrier if she joined the ticket. It's a role that she knows from her fast rise in Congress and her long rise in policing. And as we've noted in our reporting before, in any other decade, this exact resume would be a complete positive for a national Democratic ticket. The idea that someone did all this and cut crime and worked on some reforms, even with the controversies I mentioned, used to be an unmitigated positive. Policing credentials, great. But there's a lot going on. And in today's rapid shift on policing, many of those assumptions politically are being scrambled. Scrambling assumptions, changing how we think about this stuff, that could be great for policy and politics. We've covered this, all that general talk of just prison, 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 and being tough on crime is giving way to a deeper reckoning for these inequities in the system. Now, in this series, we don't try to even answer all these questions for you, let alone endorse a different contender for the ticket. But as we look at all these issues for you and show you some of that rich history, in Val Demings, you see the Democrats eyeing someone who's literally lived America's divide in race and policing, with plenty of ideas and experience on where we might go as a nation from here. That's our backstory tonight. We'll have more in the days ahead. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.